The wedding ring sat heavy on Maria's finger, not because of its weight, but because of what it now represented. Abandonment. One morning after years of marriage, she had woken up to find her husband gone. No note, no explanation, just silence and an empty space in their bed. His last words to her still echoed like poison. "You've let yourself go. I can't love you like this anymore." Her body, once cherished, had become the excuse for his betrayal. The man she had built her life with walked away, leaving her broken, humiliated, and drowning in questions. She stared at herself in the mirror, every curve and every flaw magnified by his rejection. She wasn't just grieving the loss of a husband. She was grieving the loss of the love she thought was unconditional. The whispers of the world cut deeper than she ever imagined. Neighbors gossiped, friends pitied, and strangers judged with their cruel stares. "Did you hear? He left her because she got fat," they would say, as if her worth could be measured in numbers on a scale. Each word was a dagger, driving her deeper into isolation. Maria tried to hide her pain behind fake smiles, but at night she cried until her pillow was soaked. Food, once a comfort, became both her refuge and her enemy. Every bite reminded her of his words, of her shame, of the body she no longer recognized as her own. But beneath all that pain, a flicker of something else remained. Anger. Not just at him, but at herself for believing she wasn't enough. And in that anger, a seed of change began to grow. It started small, just a walk around the block, just one less spoon of sugar in her tea. At first, her body resisted, aching and trembling from years of neglect. She wanted to quit, to sink back into the numbness of despair. But each morning she forced herself out of bed, whispering, "I am more than what he left behind." Her determination was fragile but persistent, like a tiny flame fighting the wind. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and with each step she took, the flame grew stronger. She wasn't chasing his love anymore. She was chasing her own. She rediscovered the strength in her legs, the power in her arms, and the rhythm of her heartbeat that reminded her she was still alive. As the seasons changed, so did Maria. The woman who once hid behind oversized clothes began to reclaim her body, her spirit, and her life. She signed up for a local gym, trembling with insecurity but refusing to let fear stop her. At first she stumbled, gasping for air as others looked on. But then something miraculous happened. She found a community of people who cheered her progress, who saw her effort rather than her size. Strangers became friends, trainers became mentors, and the gym became her sanctuary. For the first time in years, she wasn't defined by what she had lost, but by what she was building. And slowly, Maria began to see herself not through her ex-husband's cruel words, but through her own hard-won victories. Her transformation wasn't just physical. With every pound shed, she also let go of the weight of doubt, fear, and self-loathing. She started painting again, filling her home with colors that reflected her healing soul. She returned to school, chasing dreams she had once abandoned for marriage. She even stood in front of a mirror one morning and whispered, "I forgive you." Not to him, but to herself. For the years she believed she wasn't worthy. Maria's journey was messy, imperfect, and often painful, but it was hers. She had fallen to the lowest depths and risen, scarred but unbroken. Then, as fate would have it, he returned. One day, Maria was leaving her gym when she heard a voice she thought she'd never hear again. "Maria?" She turned, and there he was, David, the man who had left her when she needed him most. Time had not been kind to him. His once confident smile was lined with regret, his eyes searching for something he had lost. He stared at her in disbelief, unable to reconcile the radiant, confident woman before him with the broken wife he had abandoned. You look amazing," he stammered, as if her worth had only now become visible to him. But Maria didn't smile. She stood tall, her heart steady, her soul unshaken. He tried to explain, to justify his cruelty, saying he had been young, foolish, and afraid. He said he had made mistakes, that he had never stopped thinking of her. His words poured out like a confession, desperate to rewrite the past. But Maria listened with calm silence, no longer the desperate woman begging for love. She had faced nights darker than he could ever imagine, and she had survived them alone. When he finished, she simply said, "You left me when I needed you most. I don't hate you anymore, but I don't need you either." Her words were not bitter, they were liberating. For the first time, she wasn't the woman he left behind. She was the woman who had outgrown him. David's eyes filled with regret as he realized the truth. She was no longer his to hurt, to claim, or to love. He had abandoned a wife he thought was weak, but she had become a woman stronger than he could ever deserve. He reached for her hand, but she pulled it away gently, firmly. "I wish you well," she said, and walked away, leaving him standing in the shadow of his own choices. Maria didn't cry that night. Instead, she smiled as she looked at herself in the mirror. She saw the stretch marks, the scars, the lines on her face, but she also saw resilience, courage, and beauty that no one could take from her. Her worth had never been tied to his love, to her body, or to anyone's approval. It had always been within her, waiting to be claimed. And now, she finally had. Her story spread in whispers and then in voices loud enough to be heard by others who needed hope. Women who felt broken, abandoned, or unworthy looked at her and saw possibility. Maria became an advocate, speaking openly about her journey, reminding others that pain can be the soil from which strength grows. She told them, "You are not defined by who leaves you, but by what you choose to become after they're gone." And with each word, she healed a little more herself. Years later, Maria stood on a stage, addressing a crowd of women who, like her, had been left behind in one way or another. She looked at their tear-streaked faces and smiled, not because her journey had been easy, but because it had been worth it. She spoke of pain, of growth, of redemption, and the room echoed with applause. She wasn't just Maria, the fat wife left behind. She was Maria, the woman who rose, who thrived, who turned her scars into a crown. And in the silence of the night when she was alone, Maria would sometimes whisper to herself, "I am enough. I always was." It was a truth she had learned the hardest way, but one she would never forget again.